Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Claire Downham, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So today we're exploring the self, or maybe the concept of that, really. I don't want to get too much into us exploring the self, because I suspect we're maybe doing that a little bit too much already. So what is this self thing that is spoken about so often? At one point, I called myself a self-love coach, and I wanted to help people to love themselves. But it's used in so many other places. Self-care, that's talked about a lot, isn't it, as being something that we should all be doing for our well-being. Self-esteem, self-confidence. I have got a little list here because I thought, God, there's loads of them. Self-concept. The list goes on. I'd love to know yourselves that you can that you can think of. What are the other selves that we tend to see bandied around? Of course, the one that I mostly talk about is self-development. Not that I advocate doing loads of self-development, but that I provide the antidote to that. Because the whole lot of it is built on really, really shaky foundations. The self, the self really is this, what we think and feel, isn't it? That's how we talk about ourselves. We might do personality profiling, things like that, to look at ourselves and what we're like and what we think like and how we're different to other people. I think the self does bring about this idea of separation from others. But that separation is really created through our thinking. That's it. It's a collection of thoughts. And what I have found really helpful for myself and the people who I work with is to understand where those thoughts came from. Because that's what this thing called the self that we're spending all this time working on, all this energy trying to fix, is a collection of thoughts that have come from all sorts of places. You are a miracle. I always want to start here because I want us all to see the miracle that we are. By some absolute miracle, your father's sperm reached your mother's egg, whether that was done inside a woman or somewhere else. It's still a miracle. It's even more a miracle if it happened somewhere else. And you were formed. So that one in a millions of sperm and that one egg, I don't know how many eggs women have in their lifetime, not millions, but quite a few, that they connected to each other and became the start of you. And from that moment, there was a genetic version of you, and then there's everything you learnt on the top of that. And that learning can start in the womb. They've done studies to show that people start to learn things about their environment, even when they're inside the womb. If they're experiencing stress and things like that through the mother, then they will experience that inside the womb. And then from then on, like the most of it happens probably from the age of about 2. We start to learn from those people around us. We learn what to think about ourselves, because people say things to us, don't they? Well-meaning and innocent, but they do. We learn how to keep ourselves safe. We learn what to think about other people and other situations and things like that. We learn what's right and wrong. We develop our belief system. But all that is just being done unconsciously. That there's no body doing that learning. It's just this person, this form going through life, picking up what they pick up as they go along. And it's that we call the self. But that's a collection of thoughts. And you know what? None of them are yours anyway. They're other people's thoughts. They're other people's thoughts about you. They're other people's thoughts about the world. You know, I was talking to a client the other night and we were talking about she could see right back to kind of her grandparents, how this pattern of thinking had been passed down. Her grandparents, this woman's grandparents probably lived at the turn of the last century or were born at the turn of the last century. And yet she was still living a belief system or operating through a belief system that came from back then. How is that relevant to you right now? You know, yesterday I spoke about capabilities. And it's what we're capable of has nothing to do with this self at all. Nothing. Actually, what we are physically able to do, whether that's have a great relationship or step onto a stage and speak or anything else in life, do a live video, has got nothing to do with our thinking, the self. So I guess you're probably thinking, if we're not going to develop this thing called the self, what else are we going to do? And I guess where I'm pointing to is to start to see through it, not to develop it, because really when we're doing self-development, we're using our thinking, which is part of the self, to try and change the thinking that's part of the self. And it is a bit of a mind mess, is that one. I like, oh, hello. But that's like trying to do your own brain surgery, which is inadvisable, by the way. But actually, in the moment, sometimes now I catch myself going off into my yardy-yar about what's right and how people should behave. And we've all done this, haven't we? We hear somebody else's voice. Might be our mother or somebody else, an adult who was in our lives. And it's not our voice. That's not us. And there's some beautiful clues available to us when we're considering this, and that's our feelings. Often when we're caught up in the self, it doesn't feel nice. And then we can get curious. You know, what am I believing right now that fundamentally isn't true because it's part of this self that is all this learned stuff, and I'm trying to apply it to this new situation or this repeat situation, and I'm still applying the same rule that I was running when I was 2 years old, and I'm trying to apply it, and it feels awful and off because the thinking's not present. It's not part of what's happening right now. And that's me just having an insight with you folks, by the way. I've just seen that myself. It's not part of the present moment. It's reusing all this old stuff, this self. It's reusing it and trying to apply it in a situation that it just fundamentally doesn't work in. And that's why you get a horrible feeling. Because that presence that you really are is trying to get through and say, right, in this moment, this is new, this is fresh. This is not what happened to you when you were 2 or 3. This is what's happening now. You don't need all this old baggage. There are some things we've learned that are really helpful in keeping us safe, but so much of this content of this self-concept and how we see the world is blocking us from present moment wisdom, present moment intuition, present moment gut instinct. I had another conversation recently with a lady who said to me that she knew she was making a not helpful decision in a relationship she was in, but she did it anyway because she ignored the present moment intuition. She stuck with the old thinking that made sense in that moment, but came with an uncomfortable feeling. But how often do we do that? Squash down our wisdom and do what the self is telling us to do. So there's a lot to be seen around this. It's just a gradual peeling off of the layers of an onion, really. You're not going to see it all at once. I think that would blow your mind, I think, a bit if you saw it all at once. But over time it does get clearer. And more layers of the onion do fall away, more layers of the self. The self doesn't need developing. Let's look to let it go and connect more deeply to who we really are, which is this innate, wonderful intelligence of life. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Claire Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.